Yesterday, Nintendo finally revealed what it has in store for Zelda fans. An Ocarina of Time remake is coming in 2026. If you haven't seen the announcement yet, I'll have it linked below. As excited as I am, I can't help but think this remake isn't going to be for everyone. In fact, I don't think Nintendo is going to be able to satisfy every Zelda fan, and let me explain why. But before I do, if you're hyped for the Ocarina of Time remake, consider dropping a sub. Zelda is one of my favorite game series of all time, and you'd be crazy to think I won't be streaming this day one. Now, Ocarina of Time is one of those games that usually doesn't need much of an introduction among older or hardcore gamers, but maybe you're newer to gaming, or maybe you just never played a Zelda game before, so let me break it down. Ocarina of Time is currently the highest rated video game of all time on Metacritic, and for good reason. It's considered one of the most influential games ever made and one of the first titles to truly show what 3D gaming could be. It was groundbreaking in 1998, and honestly, it still felt groundbreaking in 2001 when my tiny little hands could finally hold that weird looking Nintendo 64 controller. The game introduced lock-on targeting, a system that would influence countless games that came after it. Dark Souls, The Witcher, modern action RPGs as a whole. That's right, no Witcher 3, no Elden Ring, at least not in the form we know them today. Not without the GOAT, Ocarina of Time. More importantly, Ocarina helped prove that games could be more than just entertainment. They could be art. Shout out to Yusuke Nakano, if you know, you know. And that's exactly why Ocarina of Time and Zelda as a franchise has such a dedicated fanbase. The game wasn't just good, it was special. For a lot of people, Ocarina of Time wasn't simply a game they played, it was a defining gaming experience. I still remember leaving Kokiri Forest for the first time. As a kid, that moment felt enormous. You step out into Hyrule Field and suddenly the world just opens up in front of you. Looking back now, it's tiny compared to modern open world games, but back then, it felt endless. I remember pulling the Master Sword for the first time. I remember hardlocking my game in the second water temple. I even remember fighting Ganon and feeling like I had just completed the greatest adventure ever made. Every Zelda fan has moments like that, and that's exactly why this remake is such a difficult project, because every fan remembers a different version of Ocarina of Time, and all those people want something different from this remake. You have the purists. These are the people that don't want Nintendo to touch anything. They want the same dungeons, the same bosses, the same dialogue, the same progression, the same music. Give them modern graphics, smoother controls, maybe a few quality of life improvements, and leave everything else alone. And honestly, I completely understand that perspective. When people talk about Ocarina of Time, they're not talking about some random game from the 90s. They're talking about one of the most celebrated games ever created. The more changes Nintendo makes, the greater the chance they accidentally remove something that made the original magical. But then you have another group of fans, those who have already played Ocarina of Time 10 times over. They know every dungeon, every puzzle, every heart piece, every secret. For those players, a one-to-one remake might actually be disappointing. Sure, it'll look incredible, but once the nostalgia wears off, they're basically replaying a game they've already mastered. Those players want surprises, new side quests, new dungeons, new story moments potentially. And that's where things get complicated. Because the moment Nintendo starts adding new content, they're taking a risk. What if the new content isn't as good as the original? What if they redesign a dungeon and players hate it? What if they change a boss fight that fans have loved for nearly 30 years? What if they modernize certain mechanics and accidentally remove some of that charm that made the original special? Suddenly, the remake isn't competing against modern games, it's competing against nostalgia. And nostalgia is almost impossible to beat. And that's why I don't think Nintendo is going to take the easy route here. The Zelda team has always talked about approaching each game with new ideas. Even direct sequels like Majora's Mask and Tears of the Kingdom introduce major gameplay changes and new concepts. I don't see the Zelda devs dropping that philosophy just because they're revisiting Ocarina. I think we're getting something new. Maybe it's expanded dungeons, maybe it's new side content, maybe it's additional story scenes, maybe improved level design, who knows? The point is, I don't think Nintendo is spending years developing this project just to release the exact same game with better graphics. And if they do add new content, some fans are going to love it, Some fans are going to hate it. That's unavoidable. If you look at other major remakes, they all face the same challenge. Resident Evil 2 stayed incredibly faithful while modernizing a classic.
This is out of control.
Final Fantasy VII Remake transformed huge portions of the original experience into something completely new. Demon's Souls stayed remarkably close to the source material while updating its visuals, and all three games sparked debates among their fanbase. No matter what direction a remake takes, somebody ends up disappointed. Now imagine the challenge with Ocarina of Time. This isn't just another beloved game. For many people, this is the game. The game that introduced them to Zelda. The game that introduced them to adventure games. The game that made them fall in love with gaming as a whole. That's an insane amount of pressure to put on a remake. And we haven't even talked about visuals yet. Some fans are already worried about the art style. Others like the realistic approach. Others want something closer to the original artwork. Personally, I think it's way too early to judge. We've seen maybe a few seconds of Link sleeping. That's not enough footage to start declaring victory or disaster. We need to see actual gameplay, we need to see the world, the dungeons, the characters, we need to see it all. Only then can we really start discussing whether Nintendo is heading in the right direction. If I had to make a prediction right now, I don't think Nintendo is making a simple remaster. I think they're making a true remake. I think they're going to preserve the core of Ocarina of Time while introducing new ideas and new surprises. The real question is whether Zelda fans are going to embrace those changes or reject them. Because Nintendo only gets one chance to remake Ocarina, only one chance to revisit one of the greatest games ever made, one chance to satisfy a fan base that spent decades building up expectations in their heads. And that's why I think this project is so fascinating. Not because I think it's going to fail, but because no matter how good it is, I generally don't think Nintendo can please everyone. Personally though, I'm going to play the living shit out of this remake regardless of what direction they take. Day one, no question.